Y'all know I've been posting like a whole bunch of videos lately, and I have been trying to come up with like, hang on, sorry about that. I've thought, I had to do this the right way. It had to be perfect. It had to be, all set up just right. But we don't have time for all that anymore. I see people needing proof of two things right now: proof that God is real, and proof that they're being poisoned or they're not being poisoned. And I'm here to prove to you both of those things. And this is probably going to take more than one video, I'm sure, because this all started in 2009, I believe. My life has been one crazy roller coaster ride from the time I was little. And I want to start this video first off by saying that I don't hold any anger or resentment towards anyone, because I know how hard it was for me to fight the demons that plagued my life. And so sometimes people are doing the best that they can do. And if you expect God to give you grace, you got to be willing to give it. And forgiveness it's healing. It's healing in so many ways. So I'm just going to get right in. Life was great. Met the man of my dreams, so I thought. I was working, great job, great friends. Life was just good. Met this man who everybody said, get away from him, get away from him. But I was so in love, and I ended up out in the country. I went from being a social butterfly to being out in the country barefoot and pregnant, back to back to back to back. He was very controlling. He was very abusive, and I played parts in that. I'm sure I did. However, at the end of the day, no one deserves to be constantly called fat, a loser. You're lucky that somebody has you, or that I took you in. That is abuse. So if you guys are dealing with any of that, you deserve so much more than that. Walk away now. We got divorced. I was pregnant. We had 4 other children. I had a son already. Moved into this house, and it was my dream house. It was my fresh start. I was going to be okay. I was going to be a strong single mother. I was going to do what I needed to do. We started experiencing all this weird stuff. The house was half gas, half electric. And over a period of, I think, a year and a half, I would uncover that mobile gas was poisoning the entire neighborhood. They built, John Howard Holmes had built the houses on nursery land. It was just a small little, it was Viking Place subdivision off Snow Road in Sims. It had nurseries all around it. And basically, because the ground was so poisoned, the dirt had died, and it couldn't hold the weight of everything they put on there. So even though the pipes will allow for a certain amount of shifting, these were sinking so bad, it was letting the gas escape the pipes, and it was getting into the water line. Because apparently gas can penetrate PVC pipe, and it just gets right into your water line. It took me a year to prove this. Every night, putting these little babies to bed, putting them all in one bed, sleeping with the windows open, even if it was cold, even if it was hot, because at the time we were dealing with all this, my ex-husband was using it to his advantage, and he was running around telling everybody she's on drugs and blah, 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 blah. And he was so I was getting it from everywhere. So the end result of that was I started the lawsuit that took place. The lawyer brought on another lawyer, and that lawyer kicked me from the case. And I was so devastated. I lost everything I owned. Those people, the realtors, the people from the gas company, they stole all my kids' items. They stalked us. They beat on our doors. So finally I left. Now my ex-husband had turned everyone against me. So I have nobody. I'm trying to handle all of this on my own. Get to a house on Dog River. It was hard. It was crazy. But I was doing it. And all of a sudden we started having signs of a gas leak again. And it was an older home. It was nothing that anybody purposely did. But Mobile Gas freaked out when they realized it was me. So they broke into the house and they tried to cover up the gas leak. And yes, I know this sounds crazy, but it happened. And it didn't have to happen because it was literally just the pipe from the hot water heater. It had tiny holes in it. They could have just replaced the pipe, but they made a big deal out of that, not me. But that scared me enough to run to Mississippi between that and my ex-husband. I get to Mississippi and things are okay. Then we finally get out from under that and we get into an apartment. And the first night there, we couldn't take a bath. The water was pure brown and foamy. This was a brand new apartment complex. We were excited. We could not even shower. Come to find out, after a bunch of back and forth, and God always putting the right people in the right place at the right time for me, we ended up finding out that it was raw sewage in the water supply. Okay? Then I leave there. There's so many houses. So after there, we get a house. That house was a house that had flooded with Katrina, had black mold all in the walls because the regulations had not been changed. They didn't come in and gut the sheetrock or anything. They let it dry out and they made it look like textured walls and painted over it. We got out of there, went to Waveland, I believe. I don't know. At some point, we ended up in these income-based apartments. They had formaldehyde issues in the carpet. We get out of there, but that was a fire. That was just an accident. We get out of there and we go to Waveland, Mississippi. Everything's fine for a little while until there was 13 days of rain. And crawfish were just coming up in the backyard. Now, yes, we were towards the beach, but we were still, I believe, 2 to 3 miles away from the shoreline. Oil from BP started coming up in the yard at that house, and the old house that had been impacted by Katrina and had not been properly regulated. So I think those people ended up doing a news story on that. I had too much on my plate at that time, so I think I let some of these little battles go. We get to Diamond Head eventually, and things are good. Things are great. I actually had met my husband in Bay St. Louis. We were friends first. God definitely put him in my life. I will absolutely say that. I had no one, and he came in and he just took over, and he saved me and my kids. 1 second again. Okay. So things were great until they weren't. The stress of everything started taking its toll on everybody. The kids constantly being sick. It was a nightmare. So all of a sudden my kids we were in Diamond Head. My kids have been sick, just constantly at the doctor with, sinus, respiratory. And finally, the doctor says to me, gosh, you're here all the time. Let me test y'all for mold poisoning. I was like, no, there's no way it's mold. There's no way. You're in the South. You see a little bit of mold on everything. So you think it's normal. And I ended up letting her test us. And the blood work was horrible. When she called me, she literally said, it's bad, Joy. I don't even know how y'all are still living. And I'll just never forget that sentence. But not only was I still living, God had blessed me with a new baby. And I'm sure everybody's going, another kid. But yeah, she was a gift from God because she gave me reasons to keep fighting when I had none. And so all the kids started fainting, having seizures. It was like some house MD crap. And over, like one kid would have a seizure and a couple kids would see that kid have a seizure and they would pass out too. And I felt like I was living in an episode of Twilight Zone and House combined in one. The doctors couldn't tell me what was going on, so I was on another mission to save my kids. And I would just study and research. Now, mind you, I wanted to be doing what everybody else was doing, right? I wanted to have friends. I wanted to go to lunch. I wanted to hang out. But by this time, I had no one. I just had a bunch of people talking about me because of the trials that God was putting me through that I didn't want to be in. I didn't want to be in any of that. So we're just finding out about the illness when somebody comes and asks me to run for office. I'm going to pause right here and I'll come back later with a part 2.